Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to make our ham, egg, and cheese breakfast pizza. I've already gathered our ingredients and our tools, so I'm going to just go ahead and start by going through the ingredients and then beginning with the first step. The ingredients you'll need are half a can of crescent roll dough, 3 eggs, 3 tablespoons of milk, a 2-ounce chunk of ham, which you'll be dicing, and half a cup of cheese, which you will be shredding. Okay, so we'll go ahead and start with our first direction. Direction number 1 says to preheat the oven to 350 degrees. Because I knew that I would be doing this, I already started my oven and it's at 350 degrees already. Step number 2 says to unroll the crescent, grease the cookie sheet with cooking spray. So I'm going to go ahead and do that next. Before you use cooking spray, you always shake it, so make sure that you do that before you use it. When you guys grease your cookie sheet, and later on in the directions when it says to grease your frying pan, please do that over the top of your sink. So I'm just going to move over the sink. The reason we do that is because when you spray, it will get everywhere, and you don't want to get your cooking spray on the back of your cabinets. And also I've seen people do it over the floor, and then you'll have a really slick floor, and I've seen people slip because of that. Okay, so we have a greased cookie sheet. The next thing I'm going to do is unroll my crescent roll dough, and I'm going to make sure that as I unroll this, I keep it in a rectangle. If you've never used one of these cans before, there's a little arrow, and that's where you start to rip the cardboard off of the roll, and then it's going to pop, so be prepared for that. Sometimes they don't pop, and then you just have to bang them on the cabinet a little bit. There we go. Okay, so I only need half of this, and I want to keep it into a rectangle, so I'm going to be careful when I take this out and just pull out half of it and leave the other half. That will go to a different group. So I'm just going to set that on my plate with my ham and cheese for now. Okay, as I unroll this, I'm going to look for the seam. There will be a straight line going across, and unroll from there. Start at the very edge of your pan, or you'll run out of room. And just keep unrolling. Okay, and the seams that they're talking about are these lines. It says to keep it in a rectangle and press the seams together. So these seams, you need to just use your fingers to press them together. You don't want them to be pulling apart, because then you'll have holes in your crust, and your eggs and your ham and your cheese will fall through later on. So go ahead and pinch those together. Alright, we're good. Letter C says to bake the dough in a preheated oven for 6 to 8 minutes or until golden brown, and then remove the oven and place it on a cookie sheet, or the cookie sheet on a cooling rack. So instead of using a cooling rack, because of my limited space, I'm just going to set mine on a cool burner. So I'm going to go ahead and put mine in the oven because my oven is preheated. This is ready to go. And I'm going to set my timer for 4 minutes. Okay, and I'm going to do that over here on a different stove because we don't have a timer on this stove. Excuse me, I believe I said 4 minutes. I'm going to set it for 5. We always want to go with less time than it says just in case, and always check it sooner rather than later. The next step says to prepare the ham, so I'm going to use a serrated knife, a cutting board to dice my ham. And remember, a dice looks like small cubes, so I'm going to go ahead. I have a nice little chunk that's already kind of squared off. I'm just going to cut it in half, keeping my fingers back. And actually I might go into thirds just because it's pretty thick still. Okay, and then I'm going to lay my pieces on top of each other. And I'm going to go and make myself some strips. Remember, when you use a serrated blade, you always want to use a sawing motion. Okay, then turn them one more time to go the opposite direction. And this time we're going to get our nice little dices that we were looking for. And one more. There we go. Okay, now that they're cut, it says to put them into a microwave-safe bowl and heat in the microwave for 25 seconds or until warm. And I'm going to go ahead and put mine into my bowl, but I'm not going to put them into the microwave yet because I'm going to wait till my crust is a little bit closer to done. That way they'll stay warm until they're ready to go in the oven. Something to add to your recipe is to just go ahead and cover the ham with a paper towel when you put it in the oven. You always want to cover things when you put them in the microwave so they don't make a mess. Okay, while I'm waiting for that, while I'm waiting for my crust, I'm going to move on to my next direction. And I'm going to go ahead and prepare my scrambled eggs. In order to prepare my scrambled eggs, I need to crack the eggs one at a time into a custard cup and then put them into a medium mixing bowl. Okay, so I'm just going to move this to the side for right now and put my mixing bowl in front of me. Once they're all cracked into the mixing bowl, I'm going to go ahead and whisk them. When I'm cracking them into my custard cup, I'm going to make sure I check for shells and any deformations, such as a funky smell. Sometimes your eggs are bad, or check for any blood clots in the eggs. You can get a new egg if you have a bad egg. And one more. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and put that right into the sink and wash my hands immediately. I'm also going to wipe up my mess on the countertop first with a paper towel, and then I'm going to grab a hot, wet rag to wash the rest of that up. That way we won't have any contamination from our egg whites getting into other parts of our food. Okay, once the eggs are in here, it says put the eggs in here, add the milk, and then once the milk's in here, I'm going to whisk. So I need 3 tablespoons of milk, and I'm just going to go ahead and measure right over here and put it straight into my mixing bowl because I can measure right here. When you guys do it, you're going to measure over a custard cup and put it into your pinch cup because you won't be doing it right in your lab like I am. All right, 3 tablespoons. And the next step is to whisk. Get those out of the way. When you whisk, it's a wrist motion. Your whole arm doesn't necessarily move, your wrist should move, and it's very fast. I hear my buzzer, so I'm going to take a break from this. We're pretty close to being done. I'm going to go turn off the buzzer, and then I'm going to come back and check my crust, since I gave it an extra minute. Make sure you use your oven mitt. And the crust is looking good, so I'm going to go ahead and take that out. Remember, this is going back in the oven later on. If you want to check underneath just to be sure, you can. But that's looking golden brown already. This is going back in the oven later, just for a few minutes to melt the cheese and keep the ham warm. So as long as it is golden brown on the bottom and cooked, then you are good. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and finish whisking my eggs and my milk together. One thing to pay attention when you're doing this, you want to beat them until they are frothy, and that means that they get these nice bubbles on top. Okay, so once you have bubbles like this, you're pretty much good to go. If you want to keep beating the eggs for a little bit longer with your whisk, you can. They'll get just lighter and fluffier. It depends on the texture you like with your scrambled eggs. All right, I think that's good, so I'm going to go ahead and put my whisk right in the sink. And the next step is to grease a frying pan with a light coat of cooking spray, which I'm going to go ahead and do over the sink. And I already have my cooking spray ready, so I'm just going to get that on there. I'm going to put it back on my burner, and I'm going to turn my burner on to medium. When you're cooking eggs, you never want to cook them on too high of a heat. If you cook them on too high of a heat, they're going to burn and they're going to get tough. And they won't be too tasty. While this is warming up, I'm going to go ahead and start shredding my cheese. You want to use the nice large shred sides of your grater, okay? And you can just, with a box grater, you just can hold the top and run your cheese down the side, and it'll grate really nicely. A way to get done faster is to run the long side down, and then it will shred it really fast. You have to watch your fingers, though, so you don't clip your fingers, because it will cut your skin right off. Okay? Once you're starting to get close, if you want to kind of turn it on its side, even though it's really meant to be used that way, I find it sometimes easier to go this direction, pulling towards yourself instead. It's easier not to get your hands. And flip your cheese around once in a while to keep it even. And your recipe does say a half a cup of cheese. But the block that you will be grabbing off of the ingredient table is actually already cut into a half a cup block. Okay, so when you buy a block of cheese at the grocery store, an 8-ounce block is 2 cups. So if you cut it into fourths, you'll have a half a cup of cheese. And that's what I did for you guys. You each have a fourth of a block of cheese to use. Okay, so now that you're done, just go ahead and knock the rest of the cheese out, and that'll go in my dirty dishes pile, and I can save that for later. And my pan is feeling warm, so I'm going to go ahead and pour my eggs on. When you're making scrambled eggs, you want to let your eggs sit for a bit. You don't want to be stirring them constantly. You kind of want to let them start cooking on the bottom, okay, before you start mixing. And you're going to use a turner to mix. So just give them a minute, let them start to set. And after a minute or so, you can stir. See, they haven't quite started to set yet, so I'm going to give them another minute. While this is going on, I'm going to go ahead and put my milk back in the fridge so it stays cold. And I'm also going to take this time to put my ham in the microwave. It said 25 seconds. There is a 30-second button, so I'm just going to push that and then watch it so that I can switch it at about that time. Okay, still not quite set. Give those another few minutes. My ham is nice and warm, smelling good. And I'm going to go ahead and just keep this paper towel over the top to keep the heat inside while I wait for my eggs to finish cooking. Once my eggs are cooked, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle them evenly over the crust. Then I'm going to go ahead and put my ham and then last my cheese. By putting the cheese last, that'll melt over the top and help keep all of my ingredients together. There we go. Now we're getting some set on the bottom. As you can see, we're starting to get some chunks in there that are holding together. That's what we want. Okay, so then just keep kind of scraping the bottom a couple times and then let it sit again. At this point, if you wanted to, you could add a little bit of salt and pepper, which I think I'm going to do. Remember to keep in mind that you're working in a group with lots of people and you don't want to overdo it. So a little bit of each is plenty. You can always add more to your own individual serving. There we go. Looking pretty good. Another minute and we should be done. Another thing to remember when cooking eggs is that you don't want to overcook them because they also get tough and chewy that way. So cooking them just enough is perfect. They'll be nice and light and fluffy. There we go. It's starting to look good here. I'm going to stop chopping now and just kind of do some flipping so that, oop, I almost lost a piece. So that they start just finish cooking all the way through. I don't want to really break them up anymore. There we go. I think we're just about perfect. You can go ahead and turn off your burner. And then once your burner is off, you can go ahead and take these eggs and evenly distribute them onto your crust. It's a delicate job. Some of it always falls on the side. And you can always pick that back up and put it back on the crust. Not a big deal. There we go. I'm going to set this on a cool burner right next door. Okay, start getting my eggs up that fell down. Spread them out evenly. Get to the edge. They may not sit perfectly on the very, very edge of your crust, but that's okay. When you take a bite, you can just spread it out a little better. There we go. Okay. The next step is our ham, which you can just use your clean hands to go ahead and distribute evenly. Another fun job to get it to stay on top of your pizza. And last but not least will be your cheese, which is ready and shredded. Okay, set that aside, wipe your hands, and get your cheese on there. If this is too much cheese for your group, you're welcome to return some for a future lab. This is going to be plenty of cheese. And some people are not that into cheese. There we go. And our oven's still on, preheated and ready to go. So as soon as I have this all on, I'm going to pop it back in the oven for just a couple of minutes. I'm going to watch the clock. Since I don't have a timer right here on this oven, I'm just going to watch the clock carefully. You guys will be setting your timer. And then checking it carefully just until the cheese is melted. And since all of our other ingredients are warm already, we don't really have to wait for them to cook. All right, we are good to go. I'm going to go ahead and wipe my hands and grab my pot holder or my oven mitt and stick this back in the oven carefully. There we go. I'm going to wait a couple minutes and wait for the finished product. While I'm waiting for the finished product, I can go ahead and continue cleaning up. Remember, hot pans and frying pans or cookie sheets or any of that need to cool off before you can put them into the water, but you can use like a paper towel to just wipe out most of your egg residue and it will come pretty much clean. Should come pretty much clean unless you burned them, then it might be a little bit harder to come clean. All right, just another half a minute and we'll be done. I think it's ready to come out. There we are. There is your finished product, ham, egg, and cheese breakfast pizza on a croissant crust. All you would need to do now is cut and serve. Some easy ways to cut a breakfast pizza like this would be with a pizza cutter or just your serrated knife or a chef's knife. But a pizza cutter I have found seems to be the easiest. So go ahead and cut and serve and enjoy.